Hello, my name is Kerry Hapner. I want to extend my thanks to Arts and Society for this opportunity. Informed by my interdisciplinary research at Stanford University, my paper, Plumed Serpent, Politics of Place, Art, and Cultural Inclusion, is a case study of the power of public art, also known as Quetzalcoatl. Plumed Serpent is one of the most controversial works of art in San Jose, California, the 10th largest city in the United States. Around the globe, politics of place, art, and culture are dynamic. What is considered truth, fact, perspective, and historical record depends on who has power. With changing demographics, new generations, and evolving cultural values, new voices question who and what should be commemorated. This tension of competing cultural perspectives exists around the world as different constituencies demand public art that is reflective and inclusive of their identity and experiences. From our nation's capitals to town squares, public art holds power in punctuating identity, history, and public memory. In an era in which we are experiencing a resurgence of white supremacy, we must be vigilant about language and symbols. Once normalized, defamation can perpetuate ethnic superiority and marginalization. We are seeing increasing awareness of these issues in the current Black Lives Matter global protests as monuments are questioned, vandalized, and taken down. Today we will consider the case study of Plumed Serpent in relation to other works like the Thomas Fallon statue in San Jose and the Robert E. Lee Monument in Charlottesville, Virginia, which reflect evolving generational views and changing public values of our historic narrative and identity. Located in downtown San Jose's Central Plaza de Cesar Chavez, artist Robert Graham's Plumed Serpent, a sculpture of the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl, was installed by the San Jose Redevelopment Agency in 1994. Enthused and inspired by ancient Mesoamerican culture, Graham sought to connect people across cultures and a noble Mexican heritage and capture the aspirational spirit of San Jose's evolution through the image of Quetzalcoatl, a symbol he saw of knowledge and good. Yet since its conception, the artwork elicits a spectrum of opinions. So I argue it is not the artwork that's controversial, but the issues surrounding it. Sitting at the center of our civic issues, Plumed Serpent reflects back to the people their social concerns about identity and place. Consider what's just a sampling of local news headlines from the time that it was installed. Some people saw the art as a monument for San Jose by a famous artist, a native son. Some used Quetzalcoatl to express their anti-government views. Public funding for the arts is a permeating theme in the discourse surrounding Plumed Serpent. Others saw Quetzalcoatl as a religious symbol of an evil Aztec religion that practiced human sacrifice. A local church leader claimed it would curse the city. Some questioned Graham's aesthetics. Some argued that Graham took advantage of the city. They claimed that he intentionally designed a crappy piece of art because he was angry about the budget. Yet many supported the work, arguing that the negative press coverage was ignorant of history and religion. Others said it belonged in the heart of San Jose, offering a new perspective of history. Now, Graham recognized that people interpret art through their own perspective. He said, "I figure if I do it this way, there must be millions of people like me, but there will also be millions of people who will not understand it, no matter what I do." And he submitted the work was his best effort. Through today, it continues to be associated with poop in the media and in jokes, perpetuating this childish, malicious reference. Just a year ago, in a vile act against the work, a tagger spray painted "fresh shit." Now, how has this happened and become normalized in the public discourse? The artwork surrounding Discourse offers a generational perspective and offers considerations for today and the future. Because art derives its meaning from how it is perceived by its viewers, Plumed Serpent has the potential to be simultaneously all of these things at once. But some of these narratives are more flawed than others, and it is for this reason the matter bears investigation. The art in this case is the catalyst of the debate and also the mirror of culture and public value. The tale of the serpent is intriguing and tainted by urban myths, perpetuated by the media and public discourse, and thus the myths become a normalized part of the public conversation. This discourse is damaging to not only the identity of our culture, but the acceptance of differences and differing perspectives and the Mexican culture that it honors, leading to an ingrained acceptance and tolerance, insomuch this defamatory rhetoric has become normalized and somehow shed of its prejudice. So my interest is in the power of public art to capture history, reflect identity, and anchor public memory. To frame the conversation, I would like to provide definition around the concepts of culture, the culture cycle, and schema. Culture is the sum total of our worldviews and our ways of living. Culture fulfills the individual's emotional need for belonging, purpose, and meaning. In the culture cycle, the individual both produces and is produced by culture. Our daily interactions foster and follow from institutions which in turn reflect and support our culture's big ideas. Art is a cultural artifact. It represents culture. Art means, at its core, it expresses and is created for a purpose. It is a form of communication. Public art both focuses and reflects local problems. Often controversies surrounding public art are misplaced. It is not the art that's controversial, but what is reflected in the work. Now, how a community responds to a work of art starts with each of its citizens and their set of schemas. An evolving set of cognitive structures that organize past stimuli that create experiences and reactions. Now, each of us have an evolving set of schemas which are learned and can be unlearned. And together, our schemas inform our perspective, which can be shared with others with similar experiences. Schemas inform collective discourse in complex, pluralistic societies, enabling one to fill in gaps of information and provide a means to interpret and evaluate artwork. So understanding what schemas are and how they work illuminate the very different judgments made about the Plumed Serpent. Now, the controversy was a localized battle and a larger culture war. In the early 1990s, the political landscape in the U.S. was increasingly polarized by competing ideological worldviews, secular progressives and religious traditionalists. These culture wars contested polemic issues such as abortion, LGBTQ rights, the right to bear arms, representation of the Confederate flag, and publicly funded art. In his speech at the 1992 Republican National Convention, conservative presidential candidate Pat Buchanan declared, "There is a religious war going on in our country for the soul of America." It is a cultural war, as critical to the kind of nation we will one day be as was the Cold War itself. His call to action was to take America back, city by city. Sparking an emotional religious debate, Plumed Serpent became a localized battleground in a national culture war. Led by the U.S. Justice Foundation, an organization that advances conservative right-wing political causes, a lawsuit was filed against the city of San Jose, alleging the artwork was a violation of the separation of church and state protected by the U.S. Constitution. Plaintiffs claimed the work was a religious symbol of an evil Aztec culture that practiced human sacrifice. Members of the far-right evangelical Christian community protested the installation of the work. Word and Warfare Ministries held a 4-day around-the-clock prayer vigil at the site of the sculpture, citing to exorcise the demon. Supporters of the artwork dismissed these acts as political propaganda. The U.S. District Court ruled against the plaintiffs that the work was an artistic interpretation and not a religious symbol. The court decision was appealed, but then later upheld. Plumed Serpent was dedicated, yet controversial public discourse continued to swirl around it. Now, San Jose's rapid changes in population, diversity, and redevelopment play out in the artwork's cultural context. By 1990, the city's population had grown to 782,000 people, 8 times its size in over 4 decades. Its ethnic demographics too quickly evolved. In 1970, San Jose was over 90% white. By 1990, the population diversified with about 25% Latinx, 20% Asian and Pacific Islander, and 5% African American. Today, with a population over 1 million, it is a minority-majority city with no one ethnic group comprising a majority of the population. At the geographic heart of San Jose is Plaza de Cesar Chavez, the site of the Plumed Serpent. It is the oldest public space in San Jose, stemming from a legacy of public policy at all levels of government that marginalized Mexican migrants and Mexican Americans. The Chicano movement, led by Cesar Chavez in San Jose, was shaped by activists seeking racial equity in education, labor, and government resources. This social justice movement set the stage for Plumed Serpent. In 1988, the Redevelopment Agency commissioned a bronze statue of Captain Thomas Fallon on horseback raising the U.S. flag in San Jose in 1846, when California was still a part of Mexico. The statue commemorated a man whose historic significance is contested. The artwork provoked a debate about representation, perspective, public memory, belonging, and inclusion. In 1990, former Vice Mayor Blanca Alvarado wrote, "Historical fact has many meanings. A significant number of our community finds the act of conquest portrayed by the statue to be offensive. The raising of the flag points to the subjugation of the ancestors of many of our citizens. To resolve the statue conflict, the city commemorated through public art other events and figures reflecting that history is evolving and that multiple events, people, and groups influence the trajectory of a community or place." The RDA engaged Robert Graham, a high-profile Los Angeles-based artist. Born in Mexico City in 1938, Graham and his family moved to San Jose when he was 12, where members of his family still reside. He studied art at San Jose State University and later at the San Francisco Art Institute. After After his formal education, his fine art career grew quickly through exhibitions and high-profile public art projects. He was commissioned by the National Endowment for the Arts to design the National Medal of the Arts, given out annually by the U.S. President. A significant commission was the FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C. Graham is regarded as one of the great artists of his time. After the Fallon statue controversy, Quetzalcoatl was created to instill pride in Mexican heritage through an image used in Mesoamerican culture prior to the Spanish conquest, a reversal of the symbolism of the Fallon statue and its commemoration of America's conquest of Mexico in San Jose. In the Aztec language, the word means Quetzal feather snake coat. Plumed Serpent represents a Mesoamerican symbol of the union of the snake's terrestrial environment with the bird's celestial environment. Other associations are fertility, learning, knowledge, merchants, arts, and crafts. Graham traveled to Mexican archaeological sites for this commission. Articulating his intent, he wrote, "When I went to central Mexico to study, I explored the great ancient cities of the pre-Columbian civilizations. So impressive was the grand design, construction, and symbolism that I was tantalized and tormented by the regret of not sharing this eloquent power and grandeur with the Chicanos I grew up with in Santa Clara Valley. My thoughts were like, if you only knew." Graham's representation is based on ancient iconography. In the collection of the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City, this Mesoamerican artifact is similar in color, form, and texture to Graham's interpretation. And here's another example. Plumed Serpent imagery is bountiful in manuscripts, sculpture, and architecture like this Mayan temple Chichen Itza, where a temple was created in honor of the feathered serpent. Aeromexico's planes showcase the icon on its cutting-edge international fleet of Boeing Dreamliners called Quetzalcoatl. Reflected in the images from the artwork's dedication, Plumed Serpent was Graham's effort to heal the insults caused by the Fallon statue controversy. In many ways, the coiled feathered serpent exemplifies closure, a cycle of conquest and reclaimed empowerment, as well as a homecoming circle. It was an opportunity to close the loop and bring to the community that shaped him a sculpture he shaped for it. As we saw from the headlines, one thing that people agreed on is that everyone had an opinion, whether positive or negative. However, the association of this Mesoamerican iconography with evil or turd is malicious disrespect for the work and subsequently for the heritage it aims to celebrate. For some, this might perpetuate ethnic superiority or intolerance. And sadly, this topic has become so normalized that the media perpetuates these views and associates it in this manner. Yet children enjoy this sculpture. They love to climb it. And as I think about our youth, this discourse becomes increasingly important. That's my son, by the way. The modern debates over public art underscore its power. We must be vigilant about symbols and language and how defamatory discourse can bleed into the minds of individuals, and a lack of understanding and empathy leads to dire consequences. For example, in efforts to remove testaments to glorified and false narratives that promote bias and racism, the City Council of Charlottesville, Virginia voted to remove several statues, including one of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The City Council's decision to remove the Lee statue catalyzed multiple high-profile protests by members of that community and national white supremacy groups. This rally, called the Unite the Right rally, It tragically culminated when a neo-Nazi rammed his car into a crowd of counter-protesters, killing one and injuring at least 28 people. These are high-stake debates being waged at all levels of government and society. We must ask whose memory is being commemorated, and how does that historic narrative reflect and inform public value? How does that symbol shape public opinion, systems of power, and cultural inclusion? We have a moral imperative to create an equitable society of inclusion through the arts. Our future depends on it, and this imperative is crucial. Now, as monuments are contested around the world, just last week, the Fallon statue was vandalized with red paint. The same day, it was discovered that someone put a mask on Quetzalcoatl to protect it from the coronavirus. Plumed Serpent reflects a coiled-up, perpetual controversy that bites through social discourse. No one is going to get the last word, but we can change the conversation. With its slithering twists and turns, exemplified by our Plumed Serpent, society does move forward. Public art reflects back to the people their concerns, offering a view into humanity and the issues of our times. Thank you.